Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, it's Rebecca Naylor, health coach with Chronically Well Club, celebrating 20 years in remission with multiple sclerosis, still healing, still strong, and still continuing to learn. And as I do learn, I'm sharing everything that I do learn with you, my MS community. I am really excited to share with you my 8 keys protocol for the Chronically Well Club. Throughout these radio shows that I'm creating, I'll be talking to you about diet, toxins, emotions, your environment, movement, cognition, gut, and mindset. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about emotions, a whole lot about environment, and a bit about mindset. So these things are all interconnected and kind of difficult to separate. So throughout your life, you'll find that there are connections between all of them. So I'm going to start today with a story, because I love stories. Doesn't everyone love to be told a story? So this story happened, 15 years ago now, back when I was in teachers college. And I was working for my practicum. I have a special education specialist working with students with disabilities, and I was starting to explore this field back then. I ended up teaching in high school, but at the time I was volunteering in a primary school multiple handicapped classroom. So these were kids that were between the ages of 6 and 10, and all of them had multiple handicaps, or multiple disabilities or exceptionalities, or whichever word you use in your geographical area. So in that classroom, we had students with severe autism, with developmental and cognitive delays, with physical handicaps, mobility, blind, deaf, you name it. We had many severely disadvantaged students. But what was amazing about that class is it was the happiest classroom to this day I've ever worked in. Those kids were so happy. And one of the things that I learned from my extended experience in that class was that it takes a lot of effort, intellect, and really in-depth understanding to comprehend the idea of hate, the ideas of manipulation, the ideas of jealousy and mistrust. All of those things don't really occur to people who have what we call a cognitive deficit. And what we call a cognitive deficit in a lot of ways is an emotional advantage, because these kids were just happy because it didn't occur to them to be anything else. All they knew was love. It was really, really beautiful. So I remember really clearly one day I came in and we were planting sunflowers and making cupcakes and doing all sorts of fun stuff. And I had an argument with someone that morning. And I came in and I guess I had a bit of a sad face on. And one of the little girls who was considered developmentally delayed, who was just perpetually smiling, walked up to me and said, "Why are you sad? Why are you not happy?" And I tried to explain to this 7-year-old girl, I was only about 20 years old myself at the time, 23. I tried to explain to her that, I was feeling sad, I'd had an argument with someone, and I was having trouble being happy in that moment. And she laughed at me. Well, she didn't laugh with me. She laughed at the idea that it was difficult to be happy. And I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, "What do you mean it's difficult to be happy? Being happy is easy. All you have to do is smile." And then she gave me the most amazing smile, and I broke into the most amazing smile, and we laughed together, and my heart was lifted for the rest of the day. And that was one of the first lessons I had in this idea that we have the choice to change our circumstances anytime we want to. And I remember that all the time when I'm feeling down. Even if you don't feel it, do it. When you do it with your body, your emotions respond. So I've been thinking a lot about emotions and what I can do with my choices to control things and to guide my life, especially over the past couple weeks. So through my health coaching and business Chronically Well Club, I do Facebook Live blogs on my Facebook page, facebook.com/chronicallywellclub, /chronicallywellclub, excuse me. And I decided to take a break for about a week and a half. I didn't do a video, and I was doing them every couple of days before that. And I just felt, I felt totally burnt out, I'll be honest. And I felt like something had to change. I was starting to feel brain fog seep back in. I was starting to feel really, really fatigued, having trouble remembering words. And I started to feel a little bit of anxiety and depression coming in. And it was really just because I was totally overwhelmed. I've got a lot on my plate right now. Although technically I'm on summer vacation from being a teacher, I have a lot of things going on. So I just launched Chronically Well Club on January 1st, and it's really taking off. I've got new clients joining. I'm doing home health audits. I'm writing a book. I'm doing the Facebook Live. I'm, doing other social media stuff. I'm connecting with other people in the MS community. Now I'm doing this radio show, which is amazing. I'm so happy to do this, but it is another thing on my plate, right? And then there are other things that I do as well, other commitments. So I was feeling stretched way too thin. Now, the last episode I did of Chronically Well Club Radio, I did part 1 review of a book called When the Body Says No, The Cost of Hidden Stress by Gabor Mate. And in that episode, I said, stay tuned next week for episode 2. So some of you might be listening going, why isn't she talking about Gabor Mate's book? I'm listening for part 2. Well, here's why. Because doing part 1 kind of stressed me out. Not because of the content of the book, but because unlike my Facebook Live videos and unlike this post, that one required research. I'd already read the book and I'd already highlighted all the important passages, but it took time to go through all my highlighted passages and decide what I was going to share and why I was going to share it and put everything in order. And it was actually a much bigger task than I realized. And I didn't feel that it was my best show. I didn't feel, well, I just like to talk intuitively. I just like to talk like it's a conversation and speak from the heart. And when I had a book in front of me and I was flipping through pages and looking for quotes, I found it quite a stressful experience. And when I listened back to the episode later, I didn't feel like I sounded like myself. Now, I still am going to do part 2 because it's a really important book and there are many different ideas that I want to share and reflect upon with you. However, this was not the week for me to dive into part 2. And here's why. I was totally stressed out. I was not feeling well. I was a week away from returning to full-time work as a high school teacher after 10 months off, focusing on other things. And the classroom environment is a very stressful place for me, which is why I had to take some time off last year to put myself in a different work environment and try out entrepreneurship and other opportunities to see if I could thrive better in a different environment. But I've made a decision to return to teaching with accommodations. Accommodations being smaller class sizes. So I'm working in the ESL, English as a Second Language, and special education classrooms where the class sizes are capped at smaller numbers. So it's not so cognitively overwhelming for me. And we with MS know that a lot of sensory overload can cause brain fog, memory difficulties, and stress that leads to physical symptoms. So I was a week away from returning and I was more nervous than I realized, and the anxiety was really getting to me and I was seeing physical manifestations. So one day I was out with my dear friend Jen, and for the first time in years, I mean, this was not a relapse. This was like a temporary worsening of symptoms in response to a stressful overload. So I had some weakness and I was tripping up on myself and having trouble finding words, and I was just like, wow, I need to step back. And I was like laughing about it because I have a kind of, very positive attitude towards MS, and I don't let myself stress or worry about symptoms. But my friend Jen, who's a newer friend and hadn't seen this before, just looked at me and was like, wow, how are you not scared? Like, isn't this frightening for you? And the symptoms didn't scare me because I knew they were temporary and they go away as soon as I figured out what the stressor was. But her reaction really kind of threw me because I saw the fear in her eyes. And then I started to question myself, should I be afraid? And that is what stressed me out over the next week, thinking, am I in denial? Am I don't know. So that's kind of what my week has been like with MS. And I think the conclusion I've come to is really that it's awesome that I'm in remission, and I have complete faith that I have the ability to control the manifestations of this so-called disease, as long as I keep my stressors under control. I know that to be true. However, I need to make sure I never lose respect for how quickly I could lose this wellness. Because sometimes I get so passionate about ideas and projects that I'm working on that I really drive myself to exhaustion. And I need to remember that my limits are different than other people and that I have to put myself first. So it was this real irony last week when I was like, oh my God, I have to do part 2 of this episode. Like, I'm so stressed out about the fact that how am I going to find time to do research for this episode of this show I'm doing to teach other people about not being stressed. Wait, hang on. This is not working for me. This doesn't make any sense. Okay. So that's when I decided, you know what? Sorry to those of you at MS&Me Radio. This episode is coming to you 6 days late. I know you like to get them 2 weeks in advance. It's coming to you a little bit late. But you know what? That's life. Sometimes we need to put ourselves first. We need to listen to our body. And I need to, as the saying goes, practice what I preach. So I needed a week to not worry about doing another episode, to not worry about doing any Facebook Lives, to not do any client coaching calls, to just focus on what I needed. And what I needed was nature. What I needed was to get out of this mega metropolis of Toronto with 4 million people and constant noise and stimulation. And I needed to get out into nature, into peace and quiet. And I needed to participate in service because that's what fills me up. So for the past week, I've been doing some really cool stuff. I went with my mom and a good friend out to visit some lavender fields here. I went horseback riding. I went for a quick overnight camping trip with a good friend. Today, I just got home and I had the most amazing day. I was volunteering at a farm sanctuary called Happily Ever Esther Farm Sanctuary in Campbellville, Ontario, and it's named after Esther the Wonder Pig, which you can Google and find. She has quite a following, and I met Esther the Wonder Pig today, and she's just the most amazing animal. And I met the most amazing people at this volunteer work day. I went with 2 dear friends from my spiritual center, and we spent the whole day doing intense manual labor, more manual labor than I realized I was even fit enough to do. Lifting and chucking and throwing bales of hay up to get them up into the barn, piling things up under the hot sun, digging up rocks from the earth and carting them over to a stone wall that we were building. It was intense for the whole day, but we were all in absolute bliss. It was just the most beautiful location, run by the most compassionate and wonderful people. And it just felt so good to serve and to be useful. And, I've always hated the concept of the gym, right? This idea that there's like this concrete block full of random machines that we can drive to most of the time just to like expel energy uselessly for no productive purpose. It really bothers me. So as much as I need to stay strong, I really actually hate going to gyms. I prefer to like actually do something with my body. And I had the most amazing workout today. And despite the fact that it was hardcore physical labor, I'm energized. Like I have more energy now than I did at the end of the day yesterday when I was just like, doing paperwork and working on my computer and, preparing lessons for the first day of school next week. Because it filled my cup, right? It filled my cup. I gained energy from the activity today. And this is something that I first learned 20 years ago. So back when I was diagnosed with MS, relapsing remitting MS, back in 1997, my first year was rough, like really rough. I remember a few months ago, I collected all my old hospital notes from all the different hospitals I'd ever been to. And I read through some of them as part of a spiritual release. And I read one of them, and the doctor who gave me the diagnosis used the phrase, a tremendous burden of disease. And I read those words like 10 times. This poor young girl who has a tremendous burden of disease. So that's where I started. I started with attack after attack after attack, vision problems, speaking problems, mobility problems, paralysis, neuropathic pain. And I was absolutely exhausted. And I remember, I want to give a shout out to this person. So there was a social worker at the London University Hospital in London, Ontario. Her name was Kathy Lee Benbow. I'm going to tag her on this episode. So Kathy Lee was awesome. I was 17 and I was a total snarky, bitter teenager. I mean, I was an A+ student and in the arts and all this stuff, but I was angry about this diagnosis and frustrated and emotional and crying and all sorts of things. And Kathy Lee, I never thanked her at the time, but I'm so happy that 20 years later, I actually ran into her last year and had a chance to say thank you. How meaningful that was for me and for her, to tell her how much it meant to me, the advice that she gave back then. Even though I wasn't ready to hear it at the time, it stuck with me and I got it eventually, and it made a huge impact on my life. So one of the things that she taught me is that you can gain energy from expressing energy. And I remember telling her this when I was seeing her. I think I was about 18 at the time. And I said, oh, Kathy Lee, like, I'm so weak. I'm so exhausted. I don't know what to do to get more energy. And she basically told me to go to the gym. And I was like, wow, I want to use a swear word here, right? I was like, how dare you tell me, who was so weak, who's so exhausted, who can barely use her limbs, how dare you tell me to go to the gym? I was so angry. And I didn't then, but I did later. And when I did, I understood what she meant, because the endorphins that you get from working out and the pride that you get from working out and the dopamine that's released into your brain, into your system, you feel incredible after you exercise. And yeah, of course, you have to start with what you can do, but your body responds quickly. You make gains quite rapidly, 2 push-ups one day, 3 the next, 4 the next, then 6, then 8, then 10. And then, you'll be amazed how quickly a small activity, when it is repeated, becomes easier and easier and easier. But the idea is you have to do it daily, or as close to daily as possible. Small amounts on a regular basis, not some big 60 or 90-minute workout, right? It's pretty easy to do it that way. So I learned that lesson back then, and I really saw it in action today, because like this morning when I was getting up at like 7 a.m. to drop my puppy off with his puppy sitter, and driving like an hour out to this farm sanctuary and thinking, oh man, what did I get myself into? Like, I'm excited about the nature, but do I have the energy for farm work all day? But when I got there and I was embraced in that community energy and the sun was shining and it just felt so good. Yeah, like, I'm tired. My muscles are going to be sore tomorrow, but I am pumped. Like, you can hear the energy in my voice. I did not have this energy this morning. I could not have recorded this radio show this morning because I did not have the energy, but now I do. So there's so many things that were great about today. The service, right? The giving. In my spiritual community, and this has nothing to do with religion. I want to put that out there, right? Spirituality, your connection to your own energetic nature, your connection to nature, to yourself, taking time to be mindful. These things don't have to be attached to organized religion. So I have a spiritual center I go to that is just that. It's not religious. It's just a community focused on spreading love in the world. And 3 of us from that community went down to work at the farm sanctuary today. And it was so amazing to work as part of a team, because so many jobs, especially with the advent of computers now, are done in isolation. And people with chronic illnesses, like people with MS, are often in social isolation, right? They don't necessarily have that workplace environment anymore if they're unable to work at this time. They don't necessarily have the physical activity unless they really go out of their way to build it. So finding something where you can be working as part of a team and engaging with other people and actually seeing the creation of a task, right? Like we walked up to this massive trailer full of like 100 bales of hay, and it was like, okay, all of these have to get lifted down one by one, thrown to the ground, lifted up, put on this conveyor belt, lifted into the barn, piled up in a pyramid. We looked at it and it was like, wow, this is a big job. And then a couple hours later, we're looking at this empty trailer and being like, holy wow, like we did that, with our own hands. And there's a pride in manual labor. I'm learning this more and more the older that I get. So tomorrow, September 3rd, 2017 is my 38th birthday. My goodness, but I feel amazing and I feel awesome because the older I get, well, yeah, I guess it's a stereotype, but the older you get, the wiser you get. And I'm learning that it's not all about academics and getting the next promotion and material things. I just want to serve. I want to serve and I want to be fulfilled by community and I want to do things that make me feel good. I'm not interested in stuff. I'm selling off all my stuff, right? So those were some of the awesome things that happened today and tomorrow. I'm so excited because I love horses and I really feel like my future needs to involve horses. I'm working on manifesting a job or an opportunity that's going to let me move out of the city and live in a rural farm-based environment, whether it's with wildlife rescue or ranching, working with horses, equine therapy. I don't know, but I just feel like that's where my future is. And tomorrow I get to go to a wisdom circle with 8 rescue horses at my dear friend Mena's retreat called Liberty Lane. I'm so excited to go there tomorrow and spend my birthday in the environment that makes me feel the most healed. So this is a little bit about what I mean when I say your environment is one of the 8 keys, right? What is your environment of your home, of your work, of your social environment? I mean, how do you feel when you're in those places? How do you want to feel? And how can you make that happen, right? So going back to last week when I was feeling a little bit unwell, I think one of the other reasons I was feeling unwell is because I'm about to return to work. I mentioned that. So I did return to work. I returned to my high school for the first day 2 days ago on Thursday, and I was there for the whole day. So I volunteered to go in for the grade 9 orientation, and I ran games with groups of them, helping them to sort of break the ice and make some friends before the first day of school for grade 9. And again, it was that fulfillment of service. At the beginning of the day, we had a couple hundred 13-year-old kids that looked absolutely terrified to be entering high school for the first time. And by the end of the day, they left linked arms with new friends, laughing, excited about the new opportunity that awaits them next week. And I was part of that, right? It feels good to share smiles, to share laughter. And it was such an awesome reminder that that is the part of teaching that I love. Yes, the environment can be stressful. Yes, the politics of the bureaucracy can be stressful. Yes, the paperwork can be stressful, and there's all sorts of things that can be stressful. But it can be so rewarding when you see a human being in front of you who has a need, and in whatever way you are able to meet that need and see a change in that child, in that human being, see a relief, see a calming, see a joy, see an understanding, right? See an excitement about a new opportunity. These are the things that I love about teaching, and that I love about doing this new show with Chronically Well Club. Some people, when I was feeling a little unwell last week, they're like, oh, maybe the radio show's too much. Maybe you should just let them know it's not going to work. And I said, no. Dropping the radio show is not an option for me, because while it may seem like I'm just doing this out of giving, it is. I mean, I'm doing it because I hope that you're getting something out of these stories that I'm sharing, but I'm also doing it for myself. This is very therapeutic for me. This is like journaling out loud for me. It's a way of processing what's happening in my world. It's a way of thinking through my priorities in my life. It's a way of reminding myself. And, we teach what we need to learn. Everything that I share with my community members about what's important for them to heal their MS is also what I need to make sure that I keep doing for my own wellness and healing. So I love doing this radio show. And yes, this episode was a few days late, but it's still going to be on time for actually going to air when it needs to be. And I'm feeling so enthusiastic, I might even go ahead and record another episode tomorrow so that I can be ahead of schedule, hopefully, because it doesn't take long to catch up when you feel nourished, when you take the time to serve yourself first. Again, it's just like the airplane, right? When you go and the flight attendants say, when the oxygen mask comes down, you must put your own on first, even before your children. Because if you don't help yourself first, you can't help anyone else. So if you liked some of the stories and tips that I was sharing today, I'd love for you to continue to tune into this show. My regular time slot on MS&Me Radio is Sunday evenings at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Chronically Well Club is the name of my organization, so you can follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, / Chronically Well Club, all three of those. I also have tools that are available that you can check out at www.voxlife, that's VOXXLIFE.com / Chronically Well Club, and also My doTERRA. MYDOTERRA.com / Chronically Well Club. These are two tools that I really advocate people with MS check out. One is some amazing neurologically enhancing socks and insoles that honestly are probably the reason I was able to do as much as I did today at the farm sanctuary, because I was wearing them and they continue to blow my mind. And the doTERRA essential oils, wow. As soon as I got home, the first thing I did was jump in the shower and then rub all my sore muscles with their amazing deep blue rub. So I love these two products, and I suggest anyone with MS check them out. So if you'd like to learn more about my individual health coaching, I do work with individuals all over the world through the internet to help you discover your body's power to heal and really recreate your life. In the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, I do home health audits where I go into your home and teach you how to become more toxin-free and create a sanctuary that you can come home to every day of your life. I also do speaking events, and I'm currently writing a book. So all of these ideas and stories, some of them you might find in my book when it eventually comes out, but I will be in that book telling more about my story and the 8 keys protocol that I've developed. So those 8 keys, those things that I think are responsible for my healing, that I direct, are my diet, toxins, emotions, environment, movement, cognition, gut, and mindset. So tune in next week and you'll hear more about all those things. And please reach out if you have a question or a comment. My email address is Rebecca, REBECCA @chronicallywell.club. And for now, I hope all of you will create an amazing day for yourselves and be well.